to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Harriet. Happy birthday to you.
She loves her cake.
We're celebrating Harriet's 168th birthday. Woo! Happy birthday, sweetheart. Woo! On this adventure, we're going to take you to meet her relatives.
Before finding a home at Australia Zoo, Harriet traveled the world. We will follow her footsteps and explore the islands where this giant Galapagos land tortoise was collected in 1835 by the great naturalist Charles Darwin. Her home country is a place where untamed animals happily coexist with people, even in the cities.
Our search takes us across the Pacific Ocean and along the equator to the South American country of Ecuador. We're starting our journey here in downtown Guayaquil, Ecuador. This is an iguana sanctuary right in the middle of town. During the night, they camp up in the trees, and as the day warms up, they come down. There's little feeding stations. It's a fabulous place.
If you're going to pick a reptile that's perfectly at home with humans, it would have to be a South American green iguana. They just don't see people as a threat, and if we leave anything edible nearby, they're into it. These guys have no fear and no respect.
Can you believe these iguanas right in the hustle and bustle of downtown Guayaquil?
This one's a dominant male of the species, and that head bobbing is a territorial display. He's saying, all you other males keep off my turf. The city of Guayaquil provides the food and sets the ground rules. It's the people who are fenced off, and iguanas have right of way.
Isn't this amazing? Urban iguanas. They're quite tolerant of people, it's amazing. And this bloke's even had his tail broken, maybe a car accident, and it's regenerated.
There's nothing to stop an iguana defending itself. Their teeth and claws are certainly sharp enough, but nothing seems to make them aggressive. They tolerate almost anything, even when the attention never seems to end. Anytime they want to escape, there's a safety zone. The grass is off limits to people, and the iguanas have learned they'll be safe on the lawn or up a tree.
The smaller, less dominant male iguanas have got quite short spikes on their neck. The bigger, more dominant they are, the bigger their spikes. This has got the biggest we've seen. He's probably the king of the territory.
There is a theory that the marine iguanas of the Galapagos evolved over millions of years, originating from the mainland. They may have come out on large mats of floating vegetation, or even their eggs may have floated out to the Galapagos Islands. And the marine iguanas have evolved and adapted to an aquatic lifestyle. It could be that their relatives on the mainland once were like these green iguanas here in Guayaquil, Ecuador.
When South American rivers are in full flood, it's easy to see how scientists came up with the raft theory of animal ocean crossings. The El Nino is affecting the entire world. Down here in South America, it's flooded. There's more water than you can poke a stick at. And these giant chunks of vegetation, logs, sticks, entire trees are all going down through the river, out the mouth and into the ocean.
We're following the flow of water 500 miles into the Pacific Ocean to the Galapagos Islands. This archipelago of more than 200 volcanic islands is one of the world's unique wildlife sanctuaries.
The only way to explore the Galapagos is by boat. Most of the islands are uninhabited. Our first encounter with the island wildlife is a Galapagos hawk. It's riding the updrafts that swirl around the incredibly rugged cliffs and peaks. This is one of the most spectacular places we've ever visited.
The Galapagos Islands are one of the most active oceanic volcanic regions in the entire world. Now, the islands first started forming about 10 million years ago. The volcanoes were erupting and building mountains under the ocean. As they built up, they started forming islands above the water level, and the tectonic plates were all moving, pushing material up as well. 10 million years ago is when they started forming, but until 5 million years ago, the islands didn't look the way they do today. Now you can see there's vegetation that's come on, animals have migrated in, and it looks like it's all done and built, but that's not true. The volcanoes are still erupting, and the islands are moving slowly east, as this is a big vent area in the center of the Earth. There are currently 13 large islands, 6 small islands, and 40 islets with names, and numerous small rocks and little islets that have yet to be named. And this is one of the most fantastic geological regions in the world.
Evolution on separate islands has produced a unique collection of wildlife.
The giant Galapagos land tortoise used to number in the hundreds of thousands. In the last 2 centuries, whalers and other people that were eating the tortoises were responsible for decimating their numbers. Today, only about 15,000 tortoises are found throughout the Galapagos Islands.
There's 2 distinct shell shapes in the Galapagos land tortoise. This is a saddleback. What a spectacular shell design. Now they've evolved this to enable them with their long legs to reach up high, extend their neck right up and graze because they live in the drier, lower islands.
The saddleback evolved to be able to reach taller vegetation. By the time they were first studied, Harriet's cousins had evolved in 14 different directions.
Now out here it can be hard to find something to eat, so he's constantly in search for vegetation on the ground as well as in the limbs. Now he'll eat anything, even the spines and pads off the Opuntia cactus. Definitely designed for this volcanic terrain.
Throughout the archipelago of the Galapagos, giant land tortoises can be very approachable. Some of the volcanoes, you can walk right up to them and they'll just sleep and slumber without a problem in the world. Others, like Harriet's family, are very difficult to find. Aren't they the most fantastic looking animals, perfectly adapted to their environment?
Have a look at this. They're dead set like a mini bulldozer.
They're incredibly tough animals, and once they pass the hatchling stage, there are no natural predators. They allow people extremely close, even when big males are aggressively claiming dominance in the mating season.
It's easy to tell why their Latin name is Giacalone elephantophus. When you look at this foot, it's a lot like an elephant's.
Which allows them to easily walk over some of the roughest and hottest terrain in the entire world, the volcanic lava, which is baking in the heat of the equator.
The male giant Galapagos land tortoise is different than the female for several reasons. They have a longer tail, which helps them to mate. They also have a concave plastron, which keeps them from rolling off the female during mating. And they can get quite large. They can weigh up to about 500 pounds.
Wow. Have a look at the size of his tail. Big tail. This is a big male.
Giant land tortoises are known to drink enormous amounts of water, but like other reptiles, they can go for months, long periods, without even a drink.
The giant Galapagos tortoise seeks out the water during the heat of the day in order to cool down. This saddleback is also in the shade to make sure that he can thermoregulate his body temperature. Since 1958, the giant tortoise has been protected here in the Galapagos. Unfortunately, it was too late for 3 subspecies.
But 11 of them still survive today, and hopefully with his protection, they'll be alive for generations to come.
Our journey to find Harriet's closest relatives takes us into a sandfly-infested swamp where some of the greatest tortoises are hidden in the wild.
This baby giant Galapagos land tortoise is only about 2 years old. When he first hatched, he only weighed about 1/1000th of his total adult body weight. Now, at this size, he's going to have a few predators. Naturally, he'd only have hawks to contend with, but feral animals like dogs and rats also prey on these little tortoises. And goats will completely denude the landscape so he doesn't have enough to eat.
It's interesting how, on the Galapagos Islands, man's brought a whole series of domestic animals onto the island, and some of them have actually become quite a pest to the land tortoise, to the iguanas, to the native species, because domestic animals have got a good historical way of getting out into the environment, toughening up, and they have a devastating effect on all native flora and fauna. Sensational view, first thing in the morning, bit of daylight, my time of the day. What happens is, for most of the year, the Galapagos giant land tortoise, Tortuga, spends his time, or their time, up on the volcanoes, on the side of the volcanoes. And then this time of year, chasing the moisture, they'll travel down to the lowlands. It's quite flooded where we're going, a lot of water. The El Nino, the heavy rainfalls have thrown everything out of whack. Nothing's in sync anymore. Animals aren't quite sure what's going on. So what we're going to do is we're going to go by horseback the rest of the way down into the lowlands where we know there's some tortoises. This is going to be great. Going to get to meet some of Harriet's brothers and sisters.
He's the expert, really.
Yes.
He will find the turtles for you.
Sí.
He says where they are.
Tortuga.
No problem. Entonces, en ese caso, yo voy a llevar, los dos ya vienen, los caballos.
Sí.
Ya esperemos los que vengan.
Aquí vienen ya.
Steve's listening intently, and he's agreeing with everything they say. There's just one catch. Steve only knows 2 words in Spanish. Sí, which is yes, and tortuga, which is tortoise. Very clever, Steve.
De llevarlos más mejor.
¿A quién?
A los señores.
El que vaya en la camioneta.
Pues en la camioneta sallasito y ahí cogimos los caballos y nos vamos. Yo llevo de aquí jalados.
G'day, bud. Quite a small-sized horse. Hope they can take my weight. Interesting saddle arrangement. The other thing is, I think I'm on the mule. Strong, they say, strong.
¿Me das la tenaza en el saquito vino?
Ya está.
La mucho en ese pillo atrás.
I'm no John Wayne, I gotta tell you. And this is a really interesting saddle arrangement. And what I find totally fascinating is that Galapagos is actually saddle. And that is why the Galapagos Islands were named because of the saddleback tortoises. Interesting. We're trying to find Harriet's relatives, so we're gonna have to go deep, right down into the swamps. Never thought I'd see the day where I'd be riding through the Galapagos on horseback. Isn't this glorious? Easy to see why the giant land tortoise have got elephant-like feet, really tough. It enables them to come down from the volcanoes to the lowland. Really rugged, very rugged. It's even hard on the horse's feet. The lava is very unforgiving. The tortoises cover this ground every year as they move between the food sources from the highlands to the lowlands. Normally the lowlands are the driest parts of the islands. Just having a bit of trouble getting my horse terms in Spanish. Of course, the tortoises love all this extra water, but it makes it a lot harder to get through the countryside. Well, this is about the end of the line. Can't take the horse any further. Just up there a little bit, we're going to have to go on foot. Oh, crikey, talk about saddle sore. I'm going to be stiff as a board after this 3-hour ride. I'm just not used to it. But the tortoises are easy to find in some places, but down here, it's going to be tough going. starting to get really good. Beautiful forest, got a real feel about it. Oh, she's getting boggy. Wild passion fruit. This is a good sign. One of their favourite foods.
Tortuga!
Yes, we're in. Look at the size of it. I can see it from here. It's a steamer. Holy smokes, look at the size of it. This is unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. This is the biggest one I've ever seen, personally. Oh, I'm overwhelmed. What a beauty. Massive, absolutely massive. We've travelled thousands upon thousands of miles to come here to experience this. The giant land tortoise in the wild. Unbelievable. Whew. It's been an epic. It's been a legendary journey and well worth it.
Woo! Munching away on passion fruit. What a life. This is just how the giant tortoises love to live. They churn up water holes, have a mud bath, keeps them cool and very glamorous.
By crikey, he's big. Real big. Mammoth proportions. Absolutely huge. He makes Harriet look very small. It's funny, we thought Harriet was a really large tortoise, but in actual fact, she's dwarfed by the enormity of this bloke. I'd hate to think how old it is. No way of knowing. Probably around when Charles Darwin was here. Great pattern on the shell. Very unique. I've never seen a pattern like this before. In fact, I'm not even sure what species this is, but you can see this beautiful curving in the back of the carapace. Magnificent. Absolutely magnificent. Just want to get a couple of nice close-ups of that passion fruit dribbling out and the busted up shell, just to show Harriet. Whoa, these sandflies. Okay, mate, I want a big smile for Harriet. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. I'm going to blow these up and take them back for our girl, Harriet.
The giant tortoises are just one of the legends of the Galapagos. We're about to discover an amazing variety of other beautiful and unique animals. There are thriving colonies of birds throughout the island, and we decide to follow the flight path of one of the most unusual-looking birds anywhere on Earth. It means another long walk to the inland of an island, but this time it's not going to be so rough. And when we get there, what a sight.
Generally, the water's quite brackish, but because we've had an unusual amount of rain due to the El Nino effect, there's quite a lot of fresh water. And if you look over there, there's some flamingos, beautiful birds. The flamingos are just like the rest of the Galapagos wildlife that we've come to love and enjoy. Very approachable. The National Parks and Wildlife Service, the guides, do an excellent job in keeping people at the right distance, staying to the path, so as everyone throughout the world that travels to this place can enjoy the beauty of wildlife nice and close and unintimidated by people.
About 500 greater flamingos are scattered through the Galapagos in small colonies. This tiny population is classed as vulnerable, and we have to be careful not to disturb them.
The flamingos of the Galapagos Island, they like the water deep enough that it comes up to about their belly. They want to walk in it. They don't really love swimming around very much. The reason why is they spend a lot of their time feeding. Now, if the water's shallow enough, they put their head upside down and they actually sift the water through. They push it through with their tongue. They catch any little crustaceans or shrimp in their mouth, and that's what they eat. Now, the reason they're that beautiful pinky orange color is from the coloration of the shrimp.
How's the way they use their feet to stir up the bottom and then work their beaks to trap their tiny prey?
The Galapagos are some of the most active volcanic islands in the world. Right behind me is the rim of a crater. Now, to fully appreciate it, we need to go down on a dive.
The first thing Steve spots is a fish he's seen right across the Pacific, a spotted eagle ray cruising in the deep channels between the islands. We're on the edge of a crater, and Steve's swimming along one of the incredibly steep underwater cliffs around the rocky islands. The water depth between islands can drop hundreds of meters in the space of a footstep. In places, the ocean trenches plunge almost straight down for more than a mile. The waters around the Galapagos are amazingly clear, and it's a rich marine environment with an abundance of tropical species. Here's another ray, but instead of swimming into the deeper water, this one heads for a shallow bottom. Take a look at this behavior. It's typical of how rays hide themselves in the sand to escape predators or to wait for a meal to come swimming or walking past. Sharks of several species are common around the islands. These are white-tipped reef sharks, and generally they're harmless to humans. Just the same, they will bite, and it's best to keep your distance. The Galapagos are renowned for sharks, including a good number of rare whale sharks, which are the biggest fish in the world. The species around the islands include some sharks considered dangerous to humans, but the ones we encountered seemed totally unaggressive, and we didn't hear any reports of other swimmers or divers having any trouble with them.
When you first see the islands of the Galapagos, you're struck with how barren they look, especially around the shoreline. But as you get closer, you start to see an amazing variety of wildlife. Thousands of birds populate every little space they can. We can see their nests in crevices and on top of the rocks, and all the good ledges are totally crowded.
And right at the water's edge, the marine iguana, the only seagoing lizard in the world, a real legend of the Galapagos. These amazing creatures evolved on these islands and are found nowhere else in the entire world.
Wow, they're incredible. They have specially adapted claws to grip the rocks, even though the surges come right over the top and wash back down. They grip, and they've got serrated teeth to tear away the algae. Completely hit by the wave. If that was me, I'd get pulled off and my arms would get ripped by the barnacle. Marine iguanas can cling like this for hours on end. The only time they move is to find a more comfortable temperature or when they dive for a feed. One thing's for sure, they don't budge an inch unless they want to.
These cliff faces are perfect homes for the blue-footed boobies. Now, they're funny birds. They absolutely crack me up. During the mating season, they chirp and honk and sky point and spread their wings. But the funniest thing ever is they take their big, beautiful blue feet and they show them to each other. Look how pretty my feet are. And that's all part of the mating ritual.
18 other species of seabirds also populate the islands, some of them in incredible numbers. It's estimated that around 750,000 seabirds make their homes on this rugged coastline.
It's also the perfect home for marine mammals like fur seals and the magnificent sea lion.
There's 2 species of sea lions here on the Galapagos. Now, every day's a good day when you're a sea lion. They love to swim and play and catch fish, but what's unique about them is that they are actually able to use their flippers for climbing. They can climb way up on the rocks in order to bask in the sun.
Wow, no effort at all. These are the fur seals, much smaller and cute. They've got the big eyes. They're quite acrobatic. They can climb up these sheer rock walls with ease, no problem at all.
just a plethora of wildlife. We've got the Sally Whitefoot crab, the sea lion pup, and of course, the famous, legendary marine iguanas of the Galapagos. Nice stuff.
I find it amazing how all this wildlife lives peacefully at such close quarters. Probably because none of these guys actually eat each other. And because they're so used to living in harmony with every other creature, they seem to accept humans as just another species that wanders through the sea.
I'm not your mother.
Isn't he beautiful? This is actually a bachelor sea lion. He's a male on his own, and he's fighting for territory and for girls. He argues with other males by first, head-butting a bit, and then they actually puncture each other's necks sometimes with their teeth. You can see the scarring on his neck from other battles. He's just taking a little bit of a break now and recovering from a few arguments. Take a look at this little Galapagos finch, right at home on a spiny cactus. We were surprised to see how far the seals and sea lions move away from the shore. In most other places, they would stick right to the water's edge to avoid any land-based predators. But here in the Galapagos, there's nothing to fear anywhere on the island. We find them in some of the most unexpected places, including a mother feeding her pup.
Aren't they cute?
There are so many different species that are unique to these islands. They include 7 different lava lizards, all of them noticeably different and all of them adapted to local conditions. Even in a single species, the markings vary according to the habitat. They've all evolved the colors that give them the best camouflage. It was the local variations of these lizards and many other animal species in the Galapagos that gave Charles Darwin the first clues for his scientific theory of evolution. Most of the lava lizards are quite small, but there can be a lot of fight and aggression in those tiny bodies.
Now, they're omnivores, so they not only eat insects, but like that little male, he's eating all kinds of vegetation, little flowers. And the females, interestingly enough, are fighting for his affections. It's the girls that duke it out over the males when it's breeding season.
Both males and females are territorial. They do those little push-ups to claim ownership, and they'll fight like crazy to get a bloke.
Of the thousands of lizard species throughout the world, iguanas would certainly be one of my favourites. And one of the best lizards I've ever seen in my entire life is these land iguanas. Only found on the Galapagos. They're endemic to these islands, and we've got a beautiful view here. The big, buffy, yellow, light-coloured male, and right behind him, that's his girl. She's gorgeous, much finer features, a little bit fat in the tummy, beautiful. Hasn't got that buffy light head, but gorgeous nonetheless.
They look sort of like a creature you shouldn't go anywhere near, but the Galapagos iguanas are amazingly tolerant of people. Like all the animals of the Galapagos, it's strictly hands-off. No one's allowed to even touch them. The biggest of these magnificent lizards grow to more than 3 feet long and can weigh as much as 28 pounds.
They're basically herbivorous, feeding on the sedges and the grasses, but they've also been known to chew on a dead seal or dead birds.
Their mouths must be incredibly tough, as they'll happily swallow cactus fruits and pads without removing the spines. They'd hardly notice a few rough edges on the insects that are also part of their diet. There aren't many insect species on the Galapagos, but this one, the painted locust, is plentiful. And because they stand out so well, they make easy prey for the lizards.
Of course, where there's life, there's death. This is a dead seal pup or sea lion pup, and it all goes back into the food chain.
A great thing about such docile creatures is that it's extremely easy to study them at really close range. They just sit there and let you move right around them. Like all reptiles, they shed their skin as they grow in size. All that bumpy skin armor makes them look like tough little brutes, but they really are the pussycats of the reptile world, probably one of the gentlest lizards I've ever seen. Like all the reptiles of the Galapagos, the land iguanas are devoted sunbathers. The only way they can regulate their body temperature is by changing environments. When they need to warm up, they sit in the sun. If it's too hot, they'll find shade, and on cold nights, they huddle together to share their body heat. They can live as long as 60 years, and this big male looks like he's well on the way to collecting the old age pension.
Is that what I think it is? It's a penguin. A penguin in the tropics? I went snorkeling specifically to see the penguins, but you can't keep a curious seal down. He's checking me right out. Woo! Boy, do they have fun. Look at him playing with this chunk of bamboo. They've got great eyesight too. Their bulgy little eyes, they can see what's going on. Here comes another one. They just glide and dance around me. Wow, it's like acrobatics. I wish I could hold my breath as long as they could. Woo! Here we go. It seems as much as I play, they want to play. It's great interaction with these beautiful marine mammals. They're totally inquisitive. Of all the unusual animals in these islands, the Galapagos penguin is the one that seems most out of place. These amazing birds can reach swimming speeds of 24 miles an hour. Woo, that's faster than our top athlete. And to be found on the tropics, these are normally cold water animals.
These are the Galapagos penguins. They're the only tropical species of penguin in the world. The other penguins are found in the South Pole. It's quite hot. They're small, but they're cute.
In normal years, the population of Galapagos penguins is between 2,000 and 5,000. Though with the El Nino effect, the unusually warm waters have cut down the fish numbers and all the seabirds are suffering. This really is the highlight of the trip for Steve, swimming with some of the cutest creatures in the sea.
On most days, penguins rise before dawn and spend most of the day swimming and hunting fish, with only a few breaks on shore. They return to their colonies on dry land late in the afternoon. On the surface, penguins swim slowly with their bodies half submerged, but when they dive, they literally fly. Yeah, they fly underwater, and their little wings flap like crazy.
Who could believe that you have penguins out here in the tropics? There used to be thousands of them. Numbers are pretty well depleted. I don't think the El Nino's doing them any good at all. But what a bonus to actually see them rock hopping, sleeping, having a bit of a preen. Beautiful thing. Gracias, amigo.
Early morning's a great time to hit the beach and watch the sea lions. Colonies like this one are fairly common in parts of the Galapagos where there's a sandy beach and a low rocky shoreline. Again, the wildlife has no worries about us being so close, provided we keep what they think is a safe distance. Even with so many pups in the colony, the sea lions almost never indicate that we might be intruding. A sea lion colony is run with a few simple laws about who's in charge, and there were a lot of battle-scarred veterans who obviously had to be taught the rules. The basic group in a colony is the harem, one big male and up to 30 females and their pups. It's not really a harem, it's more like the male virtually owns one section of beach, and the females prefer to lie there rather than somewhere else. Females can move to another territory if they like, and they often do just that. The dominant male is clearly the boss and turns aggressive the moment another male steps on his patch of sand.
Wow. You can see these two blokes, they're having a bit of a duel. What they start with, bark, bark, bark. And this is a territorial bark. And it's a prelude to a bit of a biff. Luckily, they're totally ignoring us and concentrate on protecting their territory from each other. Down in the shallows, we spot some more activity in the water, and I want to join them for a closer look. But I have to make sure I follow the rules. They're not always that obvious. There's one big dominant male sea lion here, and I reckon he's the beach master. So his rules are the rules. Just hope I understand exactly what he's trying to tell me, because these guys pack one heck of a bite, and he's big. While these girls are pleasantly surfing away, I decide it's safe enough to go in for a closer look. And as usual, they come right up to check me out. Most of them didn't mind me being in the water. But then, things start to get a little complicated. The beach master has a rush at me, and it's time to get out. The rules are simple. When the beach master says get out, that's it, you're out. They don't call them sea lions for nothing.
Back with the reptiles, it's the middle of the day and the heat is blistering. On a barren part of the island, even a cactus passes as a good shade tree, especially if you're a marine iguana.
Easily one of the most spectacular marine reptiles in the entire world would be these marine iguanas of the Galapagos Island. They are so placid, so laid back, nothing worries them. They're under the shade of this opuntia, not even bothered by me. They're just waiting for the temperature to get just perfect, and then they'll head down to the water for a feed on algae. They are beautiful, absolutely beautiful. It is one of the phenomena of the entire world to be able to get this close to any reptile, and he's not taking any notice of me whatsoever. They just don't care.
We reckon they're absolutely adorable. Unlike Charles Darwin, who was a bit insulting when he described them as a hideous-looking creature that was stupid and sluggish, we think they're one of the greatest reptiles on Earth.
They've evolved the most efficient salt glands of any reptile. When there's too much salt stored up, they open a set of ducts to their nostrils and snort it straight out. Marine iguanas have two different feeding methods depending on their size. The smaller ones take up positions right on the water's edge and they feed on the algae that's exposed by the low tide. If they went swimming, they could lose too much body heat and not have enough warmth to get back by sunset.
The bigger, more mature iguanas have enough body weight to withstand a fair time in the water. They can dive down to where the algae grows best and eat their fill before they get too cold.
Ooh, crikey, that hurt. Their claws are designed to grip the volcanic rock. My feet. Oh! Another big hit. My feet. Oh! Another big hit. These guys make it look easy. I'm getting the living daylights pounded out of me. My feet aren't designed for these volcanic rocks, nor this heavy-duty surf. They handle it easy. I got to get out of here. I'm getting bashed. Woo! All I need is some good claws. Whoa, it's hard on the gear. I don't know how they do it. The iguanas swim like a crocodile. A few lazy tail movements and they glide through the water. Truly a legend of the Galapagos, and just one of the fabulous creatures we found on our search for the relatives of Harriet.
It's really good to be back home at Australia Zoo. We missed you, Harriet.
Wow, she's got a powerful set of jaws. Really powerful. I got some great snapshots of a huge big male. Maybe it's one of Harriet's ancestors, one of her close relatives. Perhaps it could have been her boyfriend. What do you think about that big bloke? She seems pretty uninterested, but I tell you what, it was the trip of a lifetime.